Hello, my name is Jeannette Jones, and I am the host and producer of Now You See Me, the show where we redefine beauty from the inside out. You know, according to the word, God knows his plans for us, plans of good and not of evil, that we would have an expected end. Because of the word, over the years, I become more empowered. Because the more you believe the word, the more empowered that you become. And when you're empowered by the word, you know you can trust the word and you know you can trust God. So with that empowerment and with that trust comes us, asking ourselves the hard questions. I understand that from my own history that I was a person they said was outspoken. And I do remember being a little outspoken at times. I do remember also at some point, at some juncture, I lost my voice. And when I say lost my voice, I mean lost what I had to say, knowing what I had to say, or feeling like what I had to say was important. So with this courage that comes with the word and understanding God and understanding who he is, I asked myself and I asked him, where did this all come from? So I know at times it seemed as if I couldn't find my words. Even as I was growing up into different arenas, I put myself in situations, or if whatever situation I'm in, I felt like my tongue was closed, or I felt like I didn't have anything to say. Oh, the words just would not come whatsoever. Just silence, just blank. And sometimes when I did get up, I do remember almost stuttering when it was time for me to talk. And I did not understand. One on one, I was fine, but put me in some type of arena like that, when I knew that I had something to say, but it's like the words would not come. Actually, in my mindset, the way it was at the time, my mindset was, what if they don't accept what you have to say? What if it doesn't come out right? What if it sounds stupid? What if you start stuttering again? What if you just overall reject it? And we have to take these things into consideration, even though we may know the terminology and we may know what may happen in this situation, that doesn't mean that we're delivered from it. Or we know all the signs. Or our mindsets have changed to the point that we can adjust to being totally who God says. Whatever we're called to do, whatever arena, whatever mountain we're called to, we're going to have to use our voice. Whenever I think about stuttering, I think about Moses. And I couldn't for the life of me understand as I was reading, why in the world was he stuttering? What happened? When did he start stuttering? Was it because he was nervous after having been in the wilderness for 40 years? Did it happen in Pharaoh's house? You know, I had these questions. So I went through some texts, some Jewish sources, and found out that Moses was a beautiful child. He was so beautiful to the point that when Pharaoh's daughter found him, she couldn't for the life of her destroy him because God had made him so angelically appealing to the eyes. And so even it says that when he was 3 years old, people just saw how quick and how strong his intellect was. He was quick to understand things for his age, and also he was very, very tall. So people looked at him and said, he's going to be fabulous. He's going to be a wonder as he grows older. Matter of fact, he was so beautiful, it was considered to be impolite to not stop and stare at him or acknowledge him or not acknowledge his presence. But it is also said in another text, because what I just finished talking to you about, that came from a Josephus. But in another text, Jewish resource, it says that Pharaoh had Moses sitting on his lap one day. And Moses took the crown off of Pharaoh's head and he put it on his. Now, in Egyptian terms, and in terms of all the scribes and Pharisees and the princes, that was an outrage. You know, they wanted him to be killed. And the scribe said, this is the child. This is the child that's going to usurp everything, that's going to destroy everything. This is a child that's going to try to destroy your kingdom, and he's going to liberate the Hebrews. But some of the people who favored Moses said, no, we're not going to kill him. Let's see if he did it intentionally. And so what they did was they put a shiny object in front of him, and they put a lump of coal. And it is said that Gabriel specifically guided Moses' hand toward the live coal. And he touched his lips with it and touched his tongue with it. And that caused him to stutter. So he has been apparently stuttering, if the facts are correct, if that's accurate, that he's been stuttering all of his life. But people are people everywhere, throughout time, throughout history. There had to be some people that taunted him because he stuttered. There had to be some people that had an issue with the fact that he was so intelligent and he had favor. There had to be some people especially upset because he was a Hebrew. And according to the sources, he was able to go in and out at will. Matter of fact, it was not like the movie in which that was played, in which Charlton Heston played Moses. Matter of fact, that image is embedded in the heads of the people, in the minds of the people in my generation, because they used to play that movie every single Easter. So in the movie, he would go out. He only went out after it was revealed to him that he was Hebrew. But it was said that Moses knew he was Hebrew all the time. And he went out to help the brethren from time to time, to visit from time to time. That was the norm. So you had some people that had an issue with the fact that he, being a Hebrew, had the run of the place. Can go in and out of Pharaoh's house, out of Egyptian walls, anytime he felt like it. So you have a person, no matter how beautiful you are on the outside, you're dealing with scars on the inside. Yes, he had favor. Yes, he was beautiful. Yes, he had a lot going on for himself, but he still stuttered. He was still taunted. He was still facing rejection in Pharaoh's house. And trauma is trauma, period.
In the mid-90s, the CDC and Kaiser Permanente discovered an exposure that dramatically increased the risk for 7 out of 10 of the leading causes of death in the United States. In high doses, it affects brain development, the immune system, hormonal systems, and even the way our DNA is read and transcribed. Folks who are exposed in very high doses have triple the lifetime risk of heart disease and lung cancer, and a 20-year difference in life expectancy. And yet doctors today are not trained in routine screening or treatment. Now, the exposure I'm talking about is not a pesticide or packaging chemical. It's childhood trauma.
Sometimes when we think about trauma, we think it involves some kind of monumental thing that happened in our lives. And that's not always the case. Trauma over our lives can be progressive. It can start young, and if a certain event or a certain behavior happens on a regular basis, then we have trauma. It develops into trauma. So I have to know, and I have to believe, and I do believe that he was suffering from being in Pharaoh's house. Pharaoh's house served a purpose, yes. It made him familiar with the Egyptians. It made him familiar with their customs. It made him familiar with their ways. But at the same time, in the middle of ministry, you have to deal with the negativity. You have to deal with those who are out to get you in the middle of ministry. So after 40 years, when God approached him, he was basically still in the same mindset. It's almost as if he had the same level of trauma that he was dealing with as a child and growing up in Pharaoh's house. And I'll read for you in Exodus 3:11. He says, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring children of Israel out of Egypt?" I'm sure that Moses had to walk a really fine line for years while he was in Pharaoh's house. And those kinds of things take toll. They take their toll. So even though you are away from it for a period of time, even though you change cities, you change jobs, you change the people that you hang with, if you haven't dealt with the scars, if you haven't dealt with the trauma, they're still there. That inward thing that keeps you from progressing is still there. So when God approached him, he still was little in his own eyes. One, because of the crime that he committed, and two, I believe, because of what he experienced while he was in Pharaoh's house. It was still with him. So if you go down to verse 18, God is trying to tell him that, they will heed your voice. And you and the elders will go and come to the mountain and you will worship me. But Moses still was not reassured. He continued on in Exodus 4:1. He says, "Suppose they will not believe me or listen to my voice." It's about the voice. We have to realize what it is about our voice that needs to be hindered by the enemy. I know when I came to Germany about 10 years ago, and it has been a little bit over 10 years, I spoke very little. Very, very little. And I found that over the 10 years, as I look back, God has been just unveiling and unpeeling the things that needed to be revealed. Some things that were hindering me. And it's like he just chipped it away like a good vine dresser would, little by little. So it got to a point where I can actually see who I am in him and start to really embrace it. Once that happened, it's like I eventually found my voice and things started opening up as far as me speaking and having to talk. Please note that during this time, there's still fear, there's still anxiety, there's still worry. What if they don't heed my voice? We sound like Moses. What if they don't listen to us when we're talking? Is the information the right information? Is this what you told me to say, God? All of that's still going to be there. But once you're on assignment from God, the assignment is from God. It doesn't matter about your feelings. It doesn't matter about our feelings. It didn't matter about my feelings when I have to talk. This is about what God wants us to do. In whatever arena it is. And it doesn't mean pulpit. It means whatever part of the marketplace that you're supposed to be in, where you're supposed to effect change. That's what it means. It's an assignment where our emotions have to be overridden. Our emotions and our feelings have nothing to do with what God said to do. And so I see and saw many doors opening here and there. And the more I embraced the call, the more I sought the Lord, the more I sought his face, the more he revealed. The more he revealed. And so we're looking at Moses, and he had to get past his stuttering. The thing is, his layers had to be pulled away. I'm sure there were some wonderful changes that happened in him and in his spirit over the 40 years. But that thing that stopped his voice, the thing that caused him to feel like he was little, that thing that made him feel like, you want me to do it? Who am I? Then in Exodus 4:10, Moses says, Then Moses said to the Lord, O my Lord, I am not eloquent, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. Like I said, trauma is trauma. Bottom line. And we have to switch on purposely a mindset that says, I am what God says I am. I can do what God says that I can do. Yes, they will heed my voice. So, over the years, God has done marvelous things, and he's still doing marvelous things. But I think we get so caught up in our emotions and our feelings and what we want, or what we think we can't do, that we feel like, oh, I didn't hear God. Oh, but yes, you did. Yes, Jeanette, you did. Yes, he actually wants you to do this. He actually feels like he has put in you what you need to be successful. He has put you, Jeanette, in a place where you have to hear him. You have to obey him. He has put you in a place, Jeanette, where you don't even know what's going on half the time as far as how to do this or how to do that. But the marvelous thing about, I guess, where I am right now, we just talk about where I am right now. I can see over the years, like I said, of progression. Every experience, every training, every thought, every door that opened, every door that closed leads up to this moment. You have something to say just like everybody else. You know, about 40 people wrote the Bible, and all of their voices were different. They came from a different perspective. They all had a different viewpoint about certain things, but all were inspired by God. All the words that they spoke came from one mind. It came from the mind of God. So we have to embrace from Genesis to Revelation, because they all came from the mind of God. God used their voices to put pen to paper. God used their voices to speak his word. And one doesn't work without the other. God has inspired us to talk. Yes, you. Yes, me. We have something to say. God told Moses in Exodus 4:11 and 12, he said, So the Lord said to him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be your mouth and teach you what to say. And see, that's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is not to let anxiety affect our mindset, because it does. The beauty of it is to not to allow worry to shift our mindset from God, because it does. The thing is not to let rejection or the fear of rejection deter us from what God says or shift our mindset, because it does. God has already said that he will put words in our mouth when it's time. At least that's what he said to Moses, and that applies to us as well. It was not easy to stutter, to be in a house full of what would be considered the enemy, and to be stuttering, because somebody's going to always bring out what's wrong, and we have to face that. When you put your voice out there, there are some people that are going to grab a hold of it. There are some people that are not, but we can't really worry about them, can we? We have an opportunity to do kingdom business now. You have an opportunity to do kingdom business now. I don't know what that looks like for you, but I can't wait to hear your voice. You know, I had an opportunity to kind of go back a little bit. I wanted to go back and look at some of the things that God has said through this vessel, that God has said through this voice. Ecclesiastes 3:7, English Standard Version says, "There's a time to tear and there's a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak." As I look back over some of these videos and some of the things and some of the messages and that came across, I can see progression. I can see maturity. I can see God perfecting those things which concern me. I can see me eventually stop worrying about so much what I was saying, or not worried about what I was saying, but stop worrying so much about how it sounded, but worry more about, was it the correct word for that time and in that space for those particular people? I found myself doing more of Colossians 4:6, that my speech was always gracious, seasoned with salt. And then I learned how to answer every man. And also, eventually, it got to a place where it needed to be, where I was more encouraging, more uplifting as I spoke. Because as God removed the spots and blemishes from my own heart, I had a desire to remove the spots and blemishes from others. Be encouraged. For those who are thinking they're too old and everything's passed you by, it hasn't. For those who are thinking that it's too late, it's not. For those who are thinking, I'm not worth it, you are. I'm here to encourage you. I want you to be the best that you can be. Age is nothing but a number. But you know, repetition brings about results. I know, though, we think that man came up with that about repeating things over and over and over again, but no, God created repetition. With me, he just kept wooing me. He was so consistent in his love. He just constantly cared for me, constantly showed me love, constantly forgave me when I was trying to find validation in other places, in other things, and in other people. His goodness and mercy was truly following me all the days of my life. And so I went from having to serve God to wanting to serve God. I went from thinking of serving as a duty to actually, God, how can I service you? I was doing it with joy. But see, that's the way we need to be with God. No matter what the enemy comes against us with, no matter what people are coming and saying about us, we're supposed to keep moving because God has prepared a position for us. And we're just supposed to keep on packing. We're supposed to put that stuff in the U-Haul, and we're going to move toward that thing that God has for us. Why? Because Daddy said so. God has a plan for us. God has just plans of good and not of evil, and that we may have that expected end. So yes, you can have that catering business. Yes, you can go back to school. Yes, you can travel if you want to. Yes, you can have whatever you want. Yes, you can buy that home. Yes, you are going to get married. Yes, because Daddy said so. We've been acquitted, and we need to act like we've been acquitted. We have been justified to dream big, not because of our own strength, but because of the power that comes from being in the kingdom of God. With God, nothing is impossible. Once we get our mind out of prison and get aligned with God, there is nothing we won't be able to do. Nothing. Thank you so much for joining me on another leg of the journey. My name is Jeannette Jones, and this is Now You See Me, where we redefine beauty from the inside out. You have a blessed week. I invite you to go to my website, www.transparencyconsulting.com, and sign up for a 15-minute free session. Then we can talk a little and see how I can help you accomplish your dreams and set those goals. Also available on the website is my book, Out of Line. And you can download that book because it's about repositioning your walk with God. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.